This image has been one of the most used tools to propagate the idea that Palestine is on the correct side of history. When you see a photograph like this, you tend to side with the victim, right? You think this is clearly unfair. That was the first time I was exposed to this, and from that moment on, I believed 100% in the Palestinian cause, and I believed that Israel were the oppressors, more specifically the Zionist Jews.
Hi guys, this is Soar TV, and in today's video we'll see a video from a person called Deborah Daly, and she used to be brainwashed by the pro-Palestinian propaganda, but in this video she'll explain how she got tricked and how she got out of it. Let's watch.
How I fell for Palestinian propaganda. I want to share some insights, my personal experience, but also my knowledge as a historian who specializes in the study of propaganda, how I fell for this, and just expose some things here that I find to be interesting, especially at this very sensitive time where all this issue of Israel versus Palestine is taking place. So when I first came to the UK, and I would like to point out that I come from a neutral background, right? So I was neither a Jew nor a Muslim when I first heard of the issue of Palestine versus Israel. And that happened when I first arrived in the UK back in 2013, where I was exposed to this image. This image has been one of the most used tools to propagate the idea that Palestine is on the correct side of history and to just gather support for their cause. It was by seeing this photograph and no other information that when I first saw this, and as most normal people would, when you see a photograph like this, you tend to side with the victim, right? You think this is clearly unfair. That was the first time I was exposed to this, and from that moment on, I believed 100% in the Palestinian cause, and I believed that Israel were the oppressors, more specifically the Zionist Jews. Okay, that's what I believed. But years have passed, and I have studied a bit deeper into some of these topics, even visiting Israel in 2022. Actually, I went to Israel to get baptized on the Jordan River, at that time being a Christian, and I saw things in Israel that made me reconsider that whole idea I had of Palestine being the victim. But the point here is I want to look at the techniques used of the pro-Palestinian movement for propaganda, okay? So let's start with the question, right? How did this pro-Palestinian movement gain so much strength in the West? Because now we see, not only in the UK, but in other European and Western countries, we see a lot of demonstrations rising up that are pro-Palestinian. And it all kind of really began with this organization called Palestine Solidarity Campaign. So this was founded in London in 1982. And this organization, if you go on their website, you will see that they're the ones calling for protests and they're giving dates and announcements and all this kind of stuff. So that's how they organize themselves. They really they really say on the website themselves that they are the ones behind all the media campaigns and things and so on and so forth in the pro-Palestinian cause. Okay, so like let's remember that. Okay. So since then, we've had all these movements, and what I find interesting is when I go on their website, and as a matter of fact, they claim to not be linked to any political affiliation in the UK, but that's not really true because some of the names that are linked to them happen to be Labour politicians, right? Okay. So when you go on their website and you go onto the resources and you get this fact sheet, that's where I find that things are a little bit problematic, right? So first, the information we're giving here is very basic. We have that map, the same map that I just mentioned here. And then we have a timeline. How did we get here? I find it a little bit ironic that this pamphlet uses the word history all the time, but their timeline begins in 1897. History is far older than this, especially the history of this land, Israel, Palestine. If we look at the history, not what this pamphlet is saying, but if we look at the actual history of things, we know that piece of land of Israel always belonged to the Jews, right? And it's the fact that about 100 plus years after the crucifixion of Jesus, you had the Romans conquering that land and expelling the Jews. Now, the Jews were persecuted throughout history, that's a fact. I'm not going to get into why this happened, but this is a known fact. And even when we look at the end of the 1800s, which is when this pamphlet is claiming that the Zionists decided to create a state for Israel as if that was some kind of crime, we must remember it was right around this time that the Russian Tsar was expelling Jews as well from Russia. So the persecution of Jews is far older than Nazi Germany, okay? So that land belonged to Israel, and Jewish people were expelled by the Romans, who named that land Philistine, Philistines being the enemies of the Jews at the time. They named it Philistine, that later became Palestine, as an attempt to humiliate the Jews. Later on, that land ended up belonging to the Ottoman Empire. So let's take a look here at a map of what the world looked like shortly before World War I. So this region where we now have Israel here, we see that it belongs to the Ottoman Empire, but we also have the region of Egypt that was controlled for a lot of time by the British and so on and so forth. But the point here is there wasn't really a group of people called Palestine. When the Ottoman Empire ruled, you had Arabs living there, not Palestinians. That is not an identity. As a matter of fact, the Palestinian flag was created in 1968, so very recent, right? And back to this pamphlet here, the pamphlet several times refers to Palestine as historic Palestine, as if, historically speaking, Palestinians had the right to claim this land since always. That's not true. This is all fabricated, okay? And then somebody's going to say, well, yes, but what we do have happening is Israel, the state of Israel, that, as a matter of fact, since it was created in 1948, because let's be realistic, guys, the Jewish people should have the right to have a state. Why do I say this? Let's look at another very interesting map. In this map, what do you see? Israel and the Arab world. The Arab world is gigantic when compared to tiny Israel. That means that all these countries you see here, Morocco, Algeria, Libya, Egypt, Sudan, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, Yemen, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, all of them are filled with Arabs. They are Muslims, just like the people of Palestine, right? So why is it that the world seems to want a dual-state solution for Israel, splitting their land into Israel and Palestine, when that's the only place where Jewish people can securely have their own state? And considering the fact that Jewish people have always been persecuted, isn't it correct for the Jewish people to have their own state? Ever since the establishment of Israel in 1948, we had Arab states interfering and causing war and causing destabilization in this part of the world.
It's honestly amazing to see a woman that was once brainwashed with the Palestinian propaganda opening her eyes and understanding the faults of this movement, and how she's able to tell it in a coherent way so other people can relate. It's amazing. I like it a lot.
That is a historical fact as well, which this pro-Palestinian group doesn't seem to know anything about historical facts, even though they're claiming this fact sheet to be facts, okay? So, as we see here, historic Palestine, that is a lie, okay? And this image here, what is the problem I have with this image? If you take a look at the two countries that surround that region, we have Egypt and Jordan.
Take a look at the map as well, and as you can see, when it says 100% is Palestine, you are thinking that 100% of this land belongs to the Arabs. But it's factually incorrect. The lower part of this thing, right here, this whole thing, from here to here, is the Negev Desert. Unowned by anybody. It was owned by the British Mandate of Palestine. So the whole thing was not Arab. And there were also Jewish settlements all around here. Jewish settlements bought from absentee landowners. So this map is fabricated. So when you go to this picture right here, it all seems really convenient that the Jews all of a sudden took some of the green. This is the white is the Jews and the green is the Arabs. Weird, right? Fabricated.
Now, once this recent war that we have happening now in Israel, once the refugees, the Palestinian refugees wanted to exit that land, Egypt shut their borders. Neither Egypt or Jordan or any of the other Arab states wanted to receive the Palestinian refugees. Is it because Palestine, and that's another point that I have here, right, which is this pamphlet saying that non-violent Palestinian popular resistance movements have been happening. Non-violent. As far as I know, Hamas was created in the 1980s, and since then Hamas has been a terrorist organization that has caused violence. As a matter of fact, they are the people stopping the Palestinians receiving aid in Gaza right now. The Israeli army is giving them food aid, but it is the Hamas who is stopping their own people from receiving it. So could it be that the reason why Egypt, that is right there, and Jordan, all these other Arab countries didn't want to receive Palestinian refugees is because they didn't want to import Hamas terrorists? Well, why are their own people not helping each other? And why are the Jews being exclusively blamed for this when they have the right to have their own state and exist because they have been persecuted all throughout history. Where else are they going to live? So looking back in this map, we see that there's far more land and far more opportunities for Arabs in the Middle East than there are for Jewish people. So to me, once I started understanding this, and once I've been to Israel, and I find that the more I study into Judaism, because my ancestors were Sephardic Jews that escaped persecution in the Iberian Peninsula by fleeing to Brazil. From my opinion, from my perspective, what I see here is not real information. It's an attempt to rewrite history the way it is convenient, and an attempt to frame this as an entirely evil plot by the Zionist Jews, which I also find it funny because when I first saw this image and I first was exposed to pro-Palestinian propaganda, it came with the phrase, the evil Zionist Jews. Now, in the past, I've done a study on why the Protocols of the Elders of Zion is clearly a propaganda campaign. Even MI5 themselves acknowledges this on their official biography. Is the fact that Zionism always was associated with something evil, right? But when you type, what is the definition of Zionism? It's very clear. Google will give you an answer.
I don't want to watch the full thing on my channel. I want you to watch the rest of it on her channel, and I want you to subscribe to her. She's got a pretty big channel, but I don't want to take the views away from her. But it's amazing for me to see people opening their eyes and waking up. And these are the best people to educate others, because if she was exposed to this pamphlet, this fake fabricated cheat, showing 100% of it was owned by Palestinians and then the Jews took it away, these types of people are the best to educate the people who now attend the protest, because they get exactly the same pamphlets. They get exactly the same lectures. So I really think it's amazing to see people like this educating and preaching, because I can speak all I want, right? But it takes a person who was once on the other side and shifted his worldview to change the same person that's at the protest now. So beautiful, beautiful video. I'll leave the full video down in the link below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye. If you'd like to watch more of my stuff, please check out my channel down below. If you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit that notification button so you can be notified every time I upload new content. If you'd like to support me and the channel financially, you can do that using Buy Me Coffee or Patreon down in the links below. Also, we now have a Discord that you can join down in the link below. And now you can become a YouTube member and enjoy specific YouTube perks. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.